Good Monday evening. I'm Chief Meteorologist Emily Walls, and we have a lot of different topics that we're going to be covering tonight. But of course, what's really dominating the weather headlines this evening is the catastrophic flooding that has been taking place in Texas that took place basically over the 4th of July holiday, early morning on Friday, lasting into the weekend, both Saturday and Sunday. And we have some really devastating death toll numbers that are now coming out of portions of Texas. So we're going to touch on that and then follow it up with checking in with the tropics. We have a very interesting Eastern Pacific season that's already taking place, starting to set some records as well. So it's been very busy across the Eastern Pacific. And then here at home, what we're going to be watching for is the heat. It's not going anywhere, but the storm potential. We're going to start to see some more storms building in over the next couple of days, and then certainly by the end of this week and into this upcoming weekend. So first and foremost, let's start talking about Texas and what happened in the first place. So take a look at this graphic here. What this is showing you is that bullseye in the center of Texas, so central Texas. All of that rain came pouring down at the end of last week and then into the weekend, the holiday weekend. So some portions of the area actually picked up over a foot of rainfall. So if we zoom things way in here, where you see that pin showing up with 14.1 inches of estimated rainfall, this is in Kerr County. So this is one of the hardest hit counties when it comes to the flash flooding. And take a look now at some of the images in the video that we have coming out of this region. So it's just devastating. The death toll, unfortunately, throughout central Texas, because of all of this flash flooding, is now at 104. And it looks like 84 of those were coming out of Kerr County. So the particular river that I'm really going to be focusing in on is the Guadalupe River. So that particular river, in a matter of less than an hour, it ended up swelling 26 feet. So just try to imagine that. In 1 hour, this river expanded by 26 feet. So low-lying areas, any low-lying homes that were close to that riverbank, folks that were out there close to the riverbank, unfortunately, everything was swept away. Trees were snapped. Homes were just taken away. Same thing with, of course, the power grid and people. That's what we're dealing with when we're looking at all of these images here. So just absolutely devastating. Let's take a look at some of these stats that I have about the Texas flooding. Again, most of the damage in the hardest hit area is actually coming out of Kerr County, where we had 80 plus people that have been confirmed dead, and we're still going to continue to see those numbers likely going up as crews are searching for dozens of more people. But that river flooding, again, that I was mentioning is the Guadalupe River. And we've really been kind of crunching some stats. So it's just unimaginable the amount of water that was coming in because of this rain. So in this time, we had about 45 minutes where the river swelled 26 feet. And that actually leads to a river rise of about 1 foot every 2 to 3 minutes. So even as these alerts were coming out, that left folks with little to no time to react. That's the fear with flash flooding. So let's walk through a little bit of a timeline here on what happened. So the National Weather Service in Central Texas, they issued a flood watch on Thursday, knowing that we were going to be seeing quite a bit of rain. And that initial flood watch was issued for 5 to 7 inches of rain. Well, throughout the overnight and then leading into the early morning hours of the 4th of July, that was upgraded to a flood warning, a flash flood warning, and that occurred at 1:14 a.m. We are still seeing heavy rain, just training over the same exact area. And what training means is you have a storm that's developing, and then rather than it just developing and moving on its way, it continues to back build. So then it's impacting the same area over and over again, just nonstop heavy rain. That's what was happening in Central Texas. So in that time, then we had a flash flood emergency that was issued at 4:13 in the morning, and 4:03, excuse me. But it's the time of day where so many people are sleeping. They're not awake. They're not hearing or knowing that these warnings are happening. And that's why we're likely seeing a death toll that is so high, because of the time of day that this was taking place. And a lot of folks, they just didn't see it coming, even with that flood watch that was issued on Thursday. From my understanding, this particular area in Texas, it's prone to flash flooding, but no one thought that it was going to be to this degree. Again, 26 feet in just a matter of about 1 hour. So devastation coming out of that area. And if you look at the weather alerts now, fortunately, the flood watch that had been extended through today, That is now over, and this area is going to start to dry things up. But the reason that we saw all of this rain, it was actually associated with Tropical Storm Barry that made landfall in Mexico on June 29th. So if you think about a tropical system, it has counterclockwise wind flow. So that made landfall south of Texas in Mexico, and all of that wind flow was pushing that moisture up into Texas for days. And then we had that tropical moisture producing those really, really incredible rain amounts that we were seeing there. And again, Kerr County was the hardest hit. Let's change subjects a little bit here, but still right on the topic of the tropics. The tropics are having a really incredible season across the eastern Pacific. In the Atlantic, not so much. Here's a look at all of the names for the Atlantic. We've already had Andrea, we've already had Barry, and then over the weekend, actually yesterday in South Carolina, Tropical Storm Chantel, that made landfall with about 60-mile-per-hour winds, and it's now beginning to die out, but bringing flooding rains to portions of the south and the east. But a lot of the focus here really is going to be on the eastern Pacific, because take a look at this graph here. What this is showing us is for the Atlantic season that it really doesn't start taking off until late this summer into the fall. So around August, September, that's when we're at our peak for hurricane season in the Atlantic. So it's not odd that we've only had 3 named storms in the Atlantic, but in the eastern Pacific, we're now up to 6 named storms. We've already had Elvin, Barbara, Cosme, Delilah, Eric, and then we just had Hurricane Flossie. And Flossie, by the way, was the earliest F-named storm on record, not just for the eastern Pacific. So typically, the average F-named storm happens around the date of August 15th. So that means that we're running about a month and a half above average as far as named storms go in the eastern Pacific. And Flossie was the second major hurricane meaning that it was a Category 3 or higher. And typically that too doesn't occur until August. So we are way ahead of schedule, and we're seeing another system that could potentially be developing here throughout the next week or so. So this is a product that's put up at the National Hurricane Center. This is judging the tropical cyclone development, the probability of it over the next 7 days. And there is a very small chance that several hundred miles off the coast of southern Mexico that we could potentially be seeing another low developing by the end of this week and into this upcoming weekend. So it'll be something to watch, but at least this is only a 10%. If you think back to the last couple of weeks when I've been showing these maps to you, oftentimes they were showing 40, 60, 80% chance of development, and they did each and every time. So hopefully with this one, we're able to kind of get away from it, and hopefully it doesn't develop into something that's too strong. But at this point, we've had 3 named storms in the Atlantic, 6 named storms in the eastern Pacific, and the season is just getting rock and roll. And again, a lot of this, it really doesn't typically, on average, get going until late summer and into the early fall. The satellite and radar right now, let's dive into our current weather pattern. So we do have a low pressure system that's over the plain states. It's coming along with a cold front, a warm front as well. And you can see all of that yellow shading that's showing up. So those are all severe thunderstorm watches. And if we zoom things in even further, all the little polygons that you can see here across northern Nebraska, over into northwestern Iowa, those are all severe thunderstorm warnings. There's been a couple tornado warnings with this as well. But fortunately, for those of you here around the Chicagoland area, if you're wondering if we're going to be dealing with storms tonight, we are not. We're just looking at increasing cloud cover associated with those showers and storms that are out over the plains. Jumping the clock ahead to tomorrow. So the Storm Prediction Center takes that severe weather risk and it's going to be pushed farther to the south. So as those showers and storms and as that low pressure system begins to work its way closer to our region tomorrow, we actually are not at risk of seeing severe storms, at least an elevated risk. We still have thunderstorms in your forecast for Tuesday, but the overall threat for severe weather, it really appears like it's going to be farther to our south, places where you see that slight risk throughout portions of Oklahoma, and then that marginal risk stretches over to downstate Illinois, but not so much for the Chicagoland area. Again, I do think we're going to stay free of that. So Futurecast, let's run us through here tonight. Taking us into tomorrow morning, we're starting to pick up some of the cloud cover associated with those storms that I was just mentioning to you. And then going into tomorrow afternoon, that low pressure system gets a little bit closer to us. That warm front's going to cut across the area. Temperatures tomorrow still looking really warm. We're likely going to be in the mid to upper 80s, slightly cooler at the lakefront. But notice those storms begin to build into the region by early to mid-afternoon, and then they're going to sweep across the area going into the evening. It does appear like it's going to be a little more scattered in nature, so not a widespread event like what we actually could use when it comes to rainfall, because we are still dealing with those drought-like conditions. But that's not going to be what happens tomorrow. It's going to be on a scattered basis, and then by Wednesday, this low is moving really, really slowly. So it's still just barely kind of working its way eastward, although we're going to be close enough to it that I think that we see at least a couple pop-up showers or thunderstorms going into the afternoon. How much rain are we talking? Not a ton. And again, because this is going to be scattered in nature, these are kind of an estimate here. So depending on where those heavier downpours set up, I really wouldn't be surprised if some locations do pick up over an inch, but other locations may only see a couple hundredths of an inch. So it's really going to depend where those showers and thunderstorms pop up. We did get a new drought monitor that came out last Thursday. After this very short break, I'm going to detail that for you, and I'll also have a look at the next couple of days ahead. We'll see you in 2 minutes. Welcome back. The latest drought monitor is largely unchanged from the week prior. Notice that most of the area is still listed in that moderate drought, highlighted in this tan shading here, but some locations stretching up toward Chicago and the immediate metro there listed as abnormally dry. Same thing with Newton, Jasper counties across northwest Indiana. For those of you in the far southwestern sections, places like LaSalle County, portions of Kendall and Grundy County, you too are considered to be abnormally dry. So we really could use the rain. We do have rain in the forecast this week, but I think the best chance of a soaking rain that's going to be here Friday evening, Friday night, possibly lingering into early Saturday morning. As far as temperatures are concerned, more of the same for the next couple of days. Mid to upper 80s expected Tuesday through Thursday. And your humidity levels, they're really not going to be all that bad. But late this week, that's when we start to see some of that heat building back in. So low 90s expected for your Friday before those showers and storms roll in. And then over the weekend, we're likely going to be in the mid to upper 80s. And this weekend, we have the Windy City smoke out. So there's going to be a lot of folks, thousands of folks that are really tuned into the forecast for this upcoming weekend. For tonight, 66 degrees. We'll have east-northeasterly winds right around 5 to 10 miles per hour. Next couple of days, we have that rain chance tomorrow afternoon and evening, just very scattered in nature. And then on Wednesday, most areas end up staying dry. The sunshine, that's going to return on Thursday, and the humidity levels, those stay nice and low. And for those of you curious about that weekend forecast, I will have all the details for you coming up on the news at 9. We'll see you soon.